Every morning before sunrise, Daniel was the first employee to arrive at the company. His job was simple: prepare the offices, organize documents, and make sure everything was ready before the workday began. Most people only saw an office boy. Daniel saw every new day as another opportunity to learn. As the office filled with employees, Daniel quietly delivered coffee, organized files, and carried important documents from one department to another. Some thanked him politely, but many walked past without even noticing him. To them, he was just the office boy. Every evening, long after most employees had gone home, Daniel stayed behind for one more hour. He sat quietly in the empty cafeteria, reading business books, studying leadership, and writing important lessons in a small notebook. While others saw an office boy, Daniel was preparing to become a leader. The next morning, Daniel was asked to deliver coffee to the executive boardroom. As he quietly entered, he couldn't help overhearing the discussion. A major client was about to cancel a multi-million-dollar contract. The room was filled with worry, and no one seemed to have the right solution. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the meeting. He replayed every word he had heard. Instead of saying, "Someone should fix this," he asked himself, "What can I do?" He opened his notebook and worked late into the night, turning a simple idea into a practical solution. The next morning, Daniel hurried through the hallway with an important stack of documents. As he turned a corner, a senior executive accidentally dropped several confidential files. Without hesitation, Daniel knelt down, carefully gathered every document, and handed them back with respect. As he stood up, a small notebook slipped from his pocket onto the floor. As the executive handed the notebook back, he noticed pages filled with handwritten notes, business diagrams, and ideas. Curious, he looked at Daniel and asked, "These don't look like ordinary notes. What are you working on?" Daniel took a deep breath and quietly replied, "A solution to the problem I overheard in yesterday's meeting." The executive looked at Daniel for a moment and said, "If you've spent this much time thinking about it, I'd like to hear your idea." Daniel opened his notebook and calmly explained his solution step by step. With every page, the executive became more impressed. The executive slowly closed Daniel's notebook and remained silent for a moment. Then he smiled and said, "I've attended hundreds of strategy meetings in my career, and your solution is one of the most practical ideas I've seen." He handed the notebook back and added, "Tomorrow morning, you're coming with me to meet the CEO." That evening, Daniel couldn't sleep. Tomorrow would be the biggest day of his life. He carefully reviewed every page of his notebook, practiced explaining his ideas aloud, and prayed for wisdom, not for success, but for the courage to give his very best. The next morning, Daniel arrived earlier than usual. He straightened his uniform, took a deep breath, and followed the senior executive to the executive floor. As the boardroom doors slowly opened, every conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward the young office boy. The CEO looked around the room, then turned to Daniel with a calm smile. "I've heard you've been working on a solution to our biggest challenge," he said. "Don't worry about your title. Today, your ideas matter more than your position. Take your time. We're listening." The boardroom fell completely silent as Daniel slowly opened his notebook. Daniel took a deep breath and began speaking. Instead of using complicated words, he explained a simple, practical plan to rebuild the client's trust and improve the company's service. As he continued, the executives exchanged surprised glances. The room that had been filled with doubt was now filled with attention. Just as Daniel finished explaining his plan, one senior executive leaned forward and asked, "Your idea sounds promising, but what if the client still refuses to renew the contract?" The room became silent. Daniel paused for a moment, smiled confidently, and replied, "Then we don't just ask for another chance, we give them a reason to trust us again." He calmly explained a practical backup strategy that impressed everyone in the room. Just as the meeting was about to end, the CEO's phone rang. He looked at the screen and said quietly, "It's our biggest client." The entire boardroom fell silent. After a brief conversation, the CEO slowly smiled. The client had agreed to one final meeting, but only if the DAC company came with a completely new strategy. The executives immediately turned to Daniel. The following day, Daniel joined the CEO and the executive team for the meeting with the client. The room was filled with tension. When the CEO invited Daniel to speak, he confidently presented a clear plan to rebuild trust, improve service, and create a stronger, long-term partnership. By the time he finished, the client representatives were smiling. The room was silent for a moment. Then the lead client representative stood up, walked toward Daniel, and extended a hand. "You've given us a reason to believe in this company again," he said. "We're renewing the partnership." Smiles spread across the room as relief turned into celebration. After the clients left, the CEO stood before the entire executive team and said, "Today, Daniel reminded us of something we should never forget. Talent can be found in any position." He turned to Daniel with a smile. "Starting today, you will no longer serve coffee. You will join our business development team where your ideas can continue to grow." The room erupted in applause as Daniel accepted the opportunity with humility and gratitude. 8 years passed. Daniel worked tirelessly, continued learning, and earned every promotion through integrity, wisdom, and results. At just 29 years old, he was appointed the youngest managing director in the company's history. The young office boy who once served coffee was now leading the future of the company. Standing before the employees, Daniel looked around the room with gratitude. He smiled and said, "8 years ago, I walked through these doors, carrying coffee and documents. Today, I stand here because someone gave me a chance and because I never stopped learning." He paused for a moment before adding, "Never let your current position decide your future. Excellence, discipline, and character will open doors that titles never can." The employees rose to their feet in applause as Daniel looked toward the lobby where his journey had begun. Never underestimate someone because of where they begin. The habits you build today will determine the opportunities you receive tomorrow. Success is earned through continuous learning, humility, discipline, and the courage to keep growing. The position you hold today is not the limit of who you can become.